Welcome to episode 6 of the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffmann, and Eric Johnson. In today's episode, it's story time. We're talking everything marketing and how marketing can somewhat be construed as a story that you're telling to the public. Today, Lynn and I will be talking about different types of marketing, different mindsets. If you are interested in getting your marketing going, then stay tuned and join us here on the Business of Real Estate podcast. Okay, so today we are talking marketing, Lynn, and I know I think for a lot of agents, there's a difference, and you and I were talking about this just before we started filming, was marketing versus branding. I think sometimes people also confuse it with prospecting because it's two different things. So let's start with that. Your thoughts, marketing, branding, and prospecting.
So I've kind of changed my way of thinking a little bit using the word marketing to using a word called promoting. But branding is still branding. Branding to me is how you identify yourself and where you fit into the overall scheme of things. Typically, and I know we're talking to more people here than just our agents, but you will have your big brand, the brand that you bought into when you joined your brokerage. In our case, it's RE/MAX LLC. And then our agents have RE/MAX Escarpment, which is their direct franchise and their brokerage that they work with. And then they have themselves.
And also RE/MAX Niagara. Let's not forget
RE/MAX
Niagara.
I can't. We're all one big happy family, so I apologize for that Freudian slip. But yeah, so we've got those different levels of branding. And each one the agent can rely on to build that story that tells who they are. So I'll start out with that. That's my vision on that. I'll go into that a little bit deeper. But in terms of actually when they're marketing, I want to sort of put this little bug out there that you're not just marketing. It's not passive marketing. You're going to start learning to promote. And that would be promote your story and promote the property that you've been tasked with selling and exposing to the market.
And I think that what's also critical here is we have to look at what is the end result? Like, what are we looking for? Because marketing just for the sake of putting something out there, like I see a lot of agents that will just put post after post and it's like, what's your purpose? What's the reason behind it? And they go, I don't know, I just want to make content. Like, but there's got to be more than that. Because the whole idea, is to elicit a conversation.
Yes. But where are you eliciting that conversation? That's my question. So yes, posting and doing all the wonderful pictures, and we have all the interactive storybooks, all that kind of stuff, yes. But where are you putting that information? If it's a property that has a dock at the back of it, are you hitting all the marinas and all the boat manufacturers? So you have to really think about where your property belongs. And so when you know where your property belongs, you may have a list in your database of potential people that would want to buy that. Those are the people you should be talking to and sending out your social media posts to. So I'm talking about drilling it down just that little bit further. Not just helter-skelter everywhere with no plan. I want to see a plan. Exactly.
I think for me, I know when I'm talking to agents, it is about creating that plan. And part of that is, I use this example every single time, and I like to pick on Costco. Because every summer I can go into Costco, and I swear they did a little bit earlier this year just to mess me up. But typically it was like middle of July, I'll start to see children's snowsuits on the shelves in the clothing section. This year I swear it was at the end of June. But the thing is they are consistent in that same time of year. And it's just like going into the store, seeing the Mother's Day, the Father's Day stuff, the Valentine's, the summer. Oh, now we're getting into Christmas, Halloween stuff coming out. And the thing is, these big companies have a marketing calendar. And they know exactly when that product has to go out. They know it. They've planned it out for the year. They know their themes. They know their events that they're going to do. They know when they need to start planning their events. And so that's one of the things that when I'm working with agents is, I want to see them have an annual marketing calendar. a monthly marketing calendar so they know they can prepare things ahead of time, right? And so that it's not spur of the moment. And you can look and say, wow, like I look at these agents post one type of content and that's it. And they don't really look and plan it out. And they go, I don't have time, I'm too busy. Well, we could have prepared some stuff ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I think the plan, it's almost, you got to start with a plan. It's
Well,
so key. And
Eric-
know what you want to get out of it, right?
Yeah, we've discussed that, and
Yeah.
so I think that should go without saying, and I hope everybody's far enough down the pipe that they know they have to have an annual calendar and a plan. And you just said some of the main target points that Costco go after. As a buyer years ago for the fashion industry, my own fashion industry, we were always 6 to 7 months ahead. We knew Christmas was coming. We knew it was coming, so you planned for the clothing
Yep.
and the apparel for it. So in real estate, you know there's a Canada Day, you know there's a pumpkin time, Halloween, you know there's Christmas, and then in between there's Valentine's and there's a Father's Day and a Mother's Day. So you already have a nice plan set in place. So what you really need to do is start targeting your marketing and your marketing pieces to those dates, and your pop buys and your drop-offs and your content that you're going to speak to around that. You might also find that you have listed properties that are more conducive to one type of time frame than
Yep.
another. Some houses do really, really well at Christmas. They just are the perfect Christmas house. So don't ever be afraid to list a house through the Christmas months. We tend to think that there's a spring market and a fall market. Well, there's a 4 seasons market.
Yep.
And I think you really need to know what you're listing and where that's going and be proactive about where that falls into your calendar. But please have a big calendar laid out with all the months.
For sure. And I want to talk a little bit about, I've been a student of story brand marketing. And for those you may have heard the book, seen the book by Donald Miller. I've been a student for about 3 years following that. And what was interesting to me, and I know one of our broker owner, Conrad Zerini, he's done some classes on this, and we've talked about different personalities, but the story brand marketing, let me just backtrack a little bit. It's really about stories have been around. What keeps people engaged in a 2-hour movie or these sitcoms? Like, people will pay attention. And the reasoning behind this whole concept was simply the fact that today we're inundated with so much information, social media, streaming services, our phones are going off, we're getting text messages, emails, phone calls. It's a plethora of stuff. And so how do we get anybody to pay attention? Well, what he found was that the concept of a story behind your TV shows and your movies, people will sit there for 2 hours and be fully engaged and not think about anything else. There's no other thought coming into their mind. So he said, okay, let's break it down. And so one of the key things right off the bat was, who's the hero of the stories? Because that's every story we get introduced to the hero. And he said, that's your client. And so you have to create that avatar. Who is your client? And I would say, one of the keys to successful marketing is understanding who your audience is.
Right.
And so, when you're a real estate agent, that could be, there are agents that focus on seniors that are downsizing. Mm-hmm. There are people that focus on young families, growing families. There are people that focus on, new home buyers. They focus on luxury, commercial, condos. There's so many different ways, and you got to identify that person. And the reason we want to do that is there's a number of things. We got to understand their needs, their wants, and what problems are they facing that we can help them solve. Because that's ultimately who we go after. And I think along with that, and my example I use with everybody is, imagine when you go grocery shopping, you go in those big grocery stores, there are thousands of products. And I see them, but I don't pay attention, except for the needs and wants, right? And I say, I remember, I haven't eaten cereal in years, and my wife and I do this grocery shopping together, and we're going down the grocery store. I couldn't tell you, normally I couldn't tell you if cornflakes was in stock or not, but the one time she wanted to get this granola cereal, and I'm paying attention, going, I didn't know they had that flavor of that cereal. I didn't know I walk down that aisle every week and I don't pay attention, except now there is a need or want. And I think when we look at taking it back to real estate is there are different needs and wants, and we have those, it's different personalities, right? So there's those people that want numbers, right? There's those people, so even when you're marketing, you got to keep in mind that we need to market to these different personalities that we have. And so your thoughts on that?
Well, the word that I just sort of wrote down while Eric was talking was articulate. So you need to articulate very clearly what your value proposition is, what you bring to the table, what flavor of brand you are. And that's going to go into a little bit where I go into critical mass. And by critical marketing mass, I mean, if I were to say to you, pass me the Kleenex,
Not for much longer in Canada.
Not for much longer in Canada. Well, that's a new thing. Or let's FedEx this shipment. Or get the Hoover out. Those are brand names. Those aren't items. You need to think of yourself and articulate yourself as that critical mass of what it is, the field that you're in, or what it is you're offering and producing. So the other thing that came to my mind when you were talking as well is, and I'm going to attribute this one to Brian Buffini, stories sell and facts tell, okay? So when you're doing a delivery, it's always good to add the personal stories. The story of the house, the story of the family that lived in the house, the story that the house has, and you have to tap into to find out what that story is. And then you have to articulate that to the market and to promotion. And I learned last year, I went to a luxury conference and I met the gentleman that sold the most expensive property in all of North America. It was 141 million, give or take a few million. And what he did was just sheer promotion of that property. He went through his database, he looked at who he needed, and he went and delivered a story for that property.
Yep.
And that was his value for that property. So I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, and we've got some great tools that we use for that also follow the storybook line and the story of a property. There's so many things that you can do for that.
Huge. And I think, again, I go back to make sure you know who you're telling the story to.
Right.
So who are you going after and understanding their needs and wants and, problems. How do you position yourself? That's part of the marketing. How do you establish authority? You can use testimonials. Those are a great way to establish authority. Somebody else talking about how you help solve their problems and how you met their needs. You want to share, your relatability. So when you're marketing, you got to show a little bit of personal side. Hey, I relate to that. You're my type of person. And then with all marketing, it evolves into there has to be some sort of call to action. And I think that's one of the things I see a lot of realtors fall down on is there is no call to action. Hey, here's this house for sale. That's great. But you got to call me. You got to make it easy for people. And I think a lot of people just assume, hey, they'll message me. Well, no, I don't have your contact information, so I'll call the guy I know. I know this other person, maybe they'll know information. So you got to have that, and call to action could be subscribe. We want you to subscribe to our podcast, so please subscribe. But it could be call me, message me, let's set up an appointment. There's got to be ways that, okay, if they don't buy right now, we can have another sort of delayed call to action. We can offer downloadable. We need to show what success looks like, and we got to let them know what's at stake if you don't deal with us. That's sort of the story brand process in a nutshell. But I think the key thing here, like you were saying, articulate is we got to make sure that we make clear what here's what we have to offer, but what do we expect in return, right?
Yeah.
We want them to call us, etc.
Right.
So that's marketing in a sort of a nutshell. There's a lot of different channels they can go through, right? And I think, Lynn, today, technology is sort of a good and a bad. It's provided so many channels that it's like, where do I begin? But there's also this new technology, the AI, that can create a lot of this stuff. We can automate some of that stuff and have it create some of those. things for us.
It's definitely, so I'm going to be a little old-fashioned here. I definitely believe in AI, and I think it's good. And I know in advancements in medicine and so forth, having AI is going to be a phenomenal thing. I just don't think it's going to replace the human-to-human interaction, but it's going to enhance it. That's for darn sure. And it's going to make it, you'd be far more prepared and have far better answers most likely than you would, or far better dialogues or far better scripts. There won't be any grammar mistakes in any of your work. But there's 3 basic things that you are trying to convey. The first one is trust. Like 30 seconds into something, can I tell I can trust you? Can I tell that I'm more important to you than anything else, that you're the person I can trust? Mm-hmm. The other one is competency. And competency gets proven by your marketing materials, your track record, all of the things that you've done and been successful at. That's competency. And the other thing is be consistent. Be consistent with your follow-up. Be consistent with your message. Don't go doing an ad in here for one day and an ad over there for 3 days or this or that. Pick something. Pick 1 or 2 things if you can afford it, but stay consistent. It takes a very long time before any one of those things actually starts to work. Kleenex is a tissue, but Kleenex now is synonymous with a tissue. You want to be synonymous with real estate. And if you look at some of our better teams and our bigger and better individuals, they have always been consistent in their message. And that is going to take you far and wide. And then to the other thing is you need a database to be consistent, and you need to ask everybody you talk to. If you could suspend all reality, if you could say anything you want, what kind of property would be your dream property? Where would you like to live? And then write it down somewhere. Write it down. So one day when you get the opportunity to list that property, you have a built-in list of people that might like that property.
Yep.
And start to think like a promoter. Think about promoting that house as if you're promoting someone for the job of president or the job of governor or the job of the CEO. Think about promoting. So that's where my brain goes to a little bit on those things. But I do agree, AI is great, but I will not concede at this point that it will replace the human element and the personal service, because we've done that before. We've gone one extreme where we had no customer service in a store to the other where you have too much. So there's a balance, guys.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think technology is great in the sense that if you're not a strong marketing person, as a realtor, you can use some of this AI and ChatGPT. We see a lot of stuff where it can create these campaigns for you. But it goes back to you still need a plan. And I don't care how you create it, but you do need that plan. And I think, you were saying about promoting stuff. It's understanding that we do want to promote that. We want to promote those houses. And I go back to, you mentioned, and I remember I've used that line before, facts tell, stories sell, but also people buy on emotion and they justify through logic.
Exactly.
So when you're marketing, you got to remember to evoke some emotions out of these people. That's why, just going through a house, showing a house, so okay, there's the fireplace, there's the kitchen, there's the bathroom. Whip-de-doo.
How
right?
about, is this the house you can see yourself living in? Is this the house you'd like to make an offer on?
Can you not picture your family sitting around that fireplace on a cold winter's evening, playing some games and having 100%. Some great laughs and making memories?
Yeah.
You got to evoke those emotions, people, and that's why it's important to know who you're marketing to, because what are the emotions that will get them? And so there are different ways. I mentioned different personalities, because there are some people that are very conservative. They're all about the numbers. They are not buying on emotion. They're buying based on numbers. They want facts. And then there are those that are emotions, that are visual.
And here's the lucky news. They're usually married to each other.
Yep.
So you've always, most of the time you're shopping with the clients, 2 people. And there is one that's going to be, they're usually opposites. So to your point, you better have a little bit of both.
For both,
and then your job is to figure out which one you're doing the heavier lifting to.
For sure. And it's important to know who's overall making the overall decision.
Oh, the woman. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I know. I will admit, I remember once with my wife saying, "Oh no, Eric is the head of the family, but I'm the neck, and I can turn that head any which way I want." So
There's a thought.
yeah, so that's good. So, but it is making sure that you, like you said, having stuff for both parties, and making sure that everybody's engaged, and just don't take that one person. Okay, they dominated, but you need to make sure you go back to that other person, get what they're looking for.
Yeah. There's always a silent assassin in the room, and sometimes it's the father or the father-in-law too. So you got to watch out for that. But sometimes the one that doesn't talk a lot can be the one that's the decision maker. So you've always got to be looking at those different elements of it, for sure.
For sure. And when we were talking about, you mentioned Kleenex, because that really is a brand, but it became a product. And the brand became synonymous with the product itself. And we're joking because we just heard word that Kleenex is pulling out of Canada. So boo-hoo, and I guess now we'll become Scotties, I guess, I don't know. But, that brand is important because the brand signifies who you are, what you're about. And I know you had some ideas around, personal branding versus, say, a brokerage branding. So for those brokerage owners, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
The personal branding, your thoughts.
So first of all, you've got your high-level brand. So in our case, it's the big brand, RE/MAX. And that evokes a lot of trust to start with. And then you've got the brokerage level or the franchise level, which is RE/MAX Escarpment and RE/MAX Niagara. So you've got that level. And you've got that to lean into. And then you've got you. And then it's how do you develop you? How do you show who you are? And that's through all the pieces that you pull together about your bio, what you are, who you are. Do you do marathons on the weekend, or are you a musician in your spare time? Who you are and the character of you. And that's where you build the trust and the consistency and show the competence in your work. So you have an emotional brand, which is kind of those parts, who you are, and then you have your functional brand. And the brokerage and the team at the brokerage and the higher brand, the big RE/MAX overarching brand, that's your functional brand. But you have that emotional brand. And people will say to me, well, I don't need that other stuff because I am the brand. Okay, yes, you are. You are the emotional brand. You're the person on the front lines that the buyer or seller want to deal with because you've won them over with your trust and your competency and consistency. But you have a support team behind you. That's your functional brand. That's the other part of it. Yep. So in my opinion, you need both. And you need strong on both because you can say what it is you're going to do, but with a company that's been tried and true for a lot of years, that there's a lot of stability and a lot of sense and a lot of trust that's already baked into that equation.
And I'm sure you get this same as I do when recruiting the people that I've talked to that have said, hey, you know what, I was with this other brand and my God, I'd have to spend 15 to 20 minutes every meeting explaining who we are versus everybody knows who RE/MAX is, 100%. Right? So that does make sense in the sense that it is, that trust is automatically there. And I want to go back to something you said because I write notes too, Lynn.
I know.
And you mentioned I love doing this.
Paying attention,
I love doing this with you. I love this. But you talked about the value proposition and what sets you apart. And you know, I came to this realization. This was about a year ago. Because I do a lot of driving, and I work for both Niagara and Escarpment, and I'm driving, coaching people from all these different offices, and I'll go by these patches of forest, and it just blows my mind, and I go, nature is so amazing because you'll see nothing but all these trees and grass, but every tree I can distinguish between, even though they're all green. They're all different textures, different shades of green, different size of leaves, and I can distinguish between all the, God is an amazing creator, and he made these things that I could distinguish, even though they all look so similar. Wow. And so it's the same with realtors, is that there are thousands of realtors, but you can stand out from the others simply by what is your value proposition and what do you bring to the table that is unique. I think because, and to your point, is the branding is some people it's getting all dressed up. We are wearing nothing but a suit. Other people are extremely casual. Some people are mixing between. They're teams, they're individuals. Some people are sporty, athletic. Other people are more the marketing genius. There's so many different ways, follow up, everything in how you run your business, how you present yourself. Your brand gets distinguished by all these things.
Absolutely.
Right?
So now we're being compared to as trees.
Yep.
Which so are trees. And to that point, there are a lot of trees and there are a lot of realtors out there. And so what makes you different? I would always encourage everybody to be 100% authentic. Don't pretend to be a tree you're not. Pretend to be the tree you are and be happy about that and work on that. And that's where talking about who you are as a person, who you are as a family person, or just your true self, what you do, that's going to resonate and build trust immediately. I think, and again, I'm not a big one for seeing pictures on cards or little tiny thumbnails of thousands of pictures everywhere. Who the heck knows? Do you pick a realtor by their picture? God, I hope not, because I don't think that's a really good way to pick a realtor. I think you need to know who they are. So again, there's a picture, yes, but there's also that background information. Who you are as a person, what are your beliefs, what do you do, what value do you have, are you competent, have you been successful in the business that you were in before you became a real estate agent, do you love politics, do you hate politics? All of these things build a portrait of who you are. And you're not meant to get every listing, and you're not meant to be the realtor for everyone. And there's lots. And God gave me this really amazing gift, and I'll share it. I'll be a little vulnerable with this. It's okay if not everybody likes me. It's really okay. They can like me or not like me, and it doesn't really have any bearing on my day or on who I am. I'm comfortable who I am. I know what services I provide, what I do, how I help my agents, how I do things. That should be what you are too when you go to talk to your people. You know who you are. Don't try to change to facilitate the fact that you're going to get a deal or a lead or a opportunity to list. If that's not who you are, be who you are. And there is enough people out there that will find you and become your tribe, but be authentic to that tribe.
Huge. And we see you go into a large city and there's like hundreds of thousands of homes, the large metropolis cities. Yeah. There's hundreds of homes, if not thousands of homes being sold in a month. And the simple fact is there's no way one person can handle all that volume. So to your point is you cannot, and I hate when somebody tells me, well, who are you marketing to? Anybody and everybody who wants to buy and sell a house. I go, no. They're those people that are energy vampires that will suck the energy out of you, and you cannot serve others that effectively. So it's important to determine who you get along with. And when you look at your social circle, there's only so many relationships you can manage. And simply, the simple fact is that if you go through, even on your social media, who are you friends with? Well, typically people I've worked with, family. Sometimes some of the family I don't ask to join me on Facebook. No names mentioned here to protect the innocent or guilty. We have people we've worked with, people that we've had, say on a team, you've been on a sports team or some sort of club. There's things that we share in common, and these are the people that I get along really well with, and these are the people I want to work with. So to your point is that if I'm not myself, I'll start trying to fit in with somebody else, and I'm just going to dread it, and it's going to drag me down, and I'm not going to do the best job possible. So that's why, again, I go back to it is very important to know who you're marketing to. Right. So that we can be the most effective.
You need to articulate to people who you are.
Yes.
If an agent comes to me and asks me a question, they're going to get the answer that I think is appropriate, whether they like the answer or not. So if you don't want the answer, don't ask me the question. You have got to start being like that. I just talked to an agent this morning who fired a very high net worth client. And I told her at the time, they'll be back. Because when you fire somebody, they go, oh, what am I missing? So there's the fear of losing out. And the fear of losing out, somebody who is in control of their mind, their thoughts, their action, and their marketing. And you can't lose with that. If you fire somebody and they come running back, then you're in a better position than you were. And that's speaking to a little bit about trying to be all to all things and all people. It rarely works.
Yep.
Usually doesn't work. You may lose your mind. Your client doesn't get good service. And you're miserable the whole time. And worse than that, you're not dealing with people you love to deal with. And I got to tell you, the whole goal in all of this mess, there's only one goal to me. That's keep people in your pipeline, to serve them well, for them to refer you to someone else they know and love. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about this more in one of the other podcasts. But if you had one real lead or one real solid referral that you could convert out of every deal you did this year, you would literally double your business. And you wouldn't have had to change anything about who you are and what you do, other than you do a very good job and you go above expectations. And honestly, right now, folks, expectations is a very low bar. You don't have to do a lot to beat expectations.
That's right.
So all of these things we're talking about, consistency, trust, be who you are, be authentic, and put that all in a nice, neat little package and push it out.
And and I want to get into a little bit of sort of the different channels and the costs and tracking numbers, because I think that's the one thing is, and I go back to when I ask people, what's the purpose behind it? So I can put stuff up, but what's the purpose? See, you can market, you can put up a billboard, but how many people do you know who've ever bought something because of what they saw on a billboard on a bus? It doesn't make you call, but there's that type of marketing that's really about brand recognition or name recognition. And then we have that marketing piece that's designed to elicit a response. Mm-hmm. So think of going out and we have a What's Your Home Worth module that our agents can use and to generate conversations. And so that's what I want to make sure that our listeners take away. One of the things they take away anyways is that you understand the purpose behind what you're putting out. And when I understand, we were just talking about the people, so we know who we want to go after. Well, where do they get their information? Because I say to people all the time, if you're going after that high-level executive, if you focus solely on Facebook, he's not spending a lot of time there. So you got to find where they get their information. Where can you be in front of that person? So that's another reason it's important to know who you're going after, their needs, wants, where they get their information. And so I don't care what channel you use. You could market through direct mail. You could market through newspaper, radio, TV, social media. And I know some people are probably going, Eric, like newspaper's dead. But
don't tell the Globe and Mail that.
You and I both know that, we have an agent in Niagara that lives in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And he recognized that the people around him were much older, retired, and they spent their day at the local coffee shop reading that local little paper, not the regional one, the local one. He puts in a half-page ad. Man, does he not start getting all these, questions and people wanting to do home evaluations? And so, again, he recognized his audience, where they got their information. But I think the other big thing, and, we had a discussion with a couple of team leads when we were talking about one of our other episodes and talking about tracking the numbers. So it's important that you can blow your mind or in your wallet spending on marketing, but if you're not tracking and seeing the results, and you got to figure out what is your cost per lead. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to market to something, I would say, Lynn, so if I'm going to spend X number of dollars on Facebook leads, I'm going to spend X number of dollars on paid leads, whatever it is, but I've got to be tracking that to see, like, what is it costing me? Because it is easy to spend, you could easily spend 10 grand on postcards.
Oh, a lot more than that.
I know, but just in a couple of months, in 2-3, I know somebody who spent like $7 grand in a quarter, a brand new agent, actually over a half a year, he spent 10 grand and got one deal. And it's like, was that worth it?
No.
Because that's a lot of money to spend just to get one deal,
so
right?
I'll go back to old school again, because I'm a blend of both. And to go back to your first point about billboards and buses and stuff, those get you eyes. Those get you eyes on your name, and your name becomes a bit more of a household word. So I mean, that part is fine. But when it comes down to spending money on leads, I mean, I just said it before, if you have a transaction and it's fulfilled when you're in the honeymoon phase of that time, and you stay in touch with the people and you just ask, who do you know that might be thinking of buying or selling a home? Or do you have a realtor that you would work with? If you can convert one person, one other lead off of every transaction you do, you'll double your business. That doesn't cost you a whole lot of money.
Yep.
And I don't like to see agents spend a whole lot of money in the beginning because, to your point, they don't know where they're spending that money and they don't know what the ROI is going to be on that money. They have no clue.
Yeah.
So how about just getting on the phone and calling all sorts of people, offering good service, offering to give them things for free, like your knowledge and your information about the market, and ask them who they think they know that might be buying or selling a home. Make some conversations. But yet that seems to be the hardest thing for anybody to do. I don't know why, but it seems to be the hardest thing for anybody to do. And it's the easiest in terms of cost effectiveness. You can add all those other things in because you can't call 100 people in a day, and you need all that other out there as well working. But you really need to focus on the core group of people who you know you, like you, trust you, know you're competent. Work on them and start asking them to help you out. So this is all about having that strategy for how you're going to market. And again, I do believe in everything that you take out to people, to your newspaper. In Oakville, we used to have an Oakville paper that everybody, the fear of, what's that called, FOMO?
Yeah.
The fear of missing out. For about 5 years, there was FOMO going on. They were afraid to take their ads out of that paper because they thought their business would go down the tubes and somebody else was doing that ad. Well, it comes to find out that everybody's still doing business, but they're doing it a new way. There still is a book that goes around Oakville that the people in the fish and chip shop and the smaller places, they pick it up and they read it. So my theory is have a digital copy of everything and have a hard copy of everything. Because you got husband and wife or two spouses or two, whatever you've got, and you're talking to them, they all absorb information differently. So have both for them.
Yep.
So we need both of everything. We need to know who you're talking to and who you want to deal. But I don't believe in spending all that money and not know where it's going and not know who it's being targeted to. I'd rather you pick up the phone and have conversations with people and then have the courage to ask for business.
Well, it's funny because you said no, like, and trust, and I love when somebody comes to me, I'll have an agent say, hey, Eric, I'm thinking of buying leads. Who do you recommend? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, okay, first let's back up a second. Tell me how you're working your database. Oh, you're not. and guys, I've helped agents where they are not working their database. And if I show you how to effectively work your database, I guarantee you'll double your sales.
Right.
You'll get twice as much money. And it blows my mind is that somebody says, well, I'm afraid, or I don't want to call the people I know that know, like, and trust me. I'd rather spend all kinds of money talking to strangers. And I remember writing an article one time that said, imagine you just won the lottery, say 50 million, 70 million, I don't care, big number. And I went out on the street corner, I said, screw my friends and family. I'm going to start handing this out to complete strangers. And they're going to like me for the moment. But as soon as that money runs out, because we don't have a relationship, it's over.
It's over.
And so I ignored my family and friends to try and win over strangers. Meanwhile, I could have kept all my money, and I could have just worked with family and friends and built the relationships deeper. And to me, it is all about marketing. Is yes, in some cases you're going after, you're letting those people that don't know you, but I want to focus on the people that do know me and they go, wow, he knows what he's doing or she knows what's going on. She's an expert in the market. My friends and family, to your point earlier, was that now you get referrals. Mm-hmm. And so even a newsletter can be marketing, right? Newsletter is marketing. I'm marketing what I'm about. I'm showing them my brand.
Or in our brokerage, we have a product called Real Intro.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I've been preaching Real Intro for 7 years. I think it's the most brilliant piece of technology that we have in this brokerage. It tells people who you are. It tells people what you're about. It can tell people what listings you have. It can tell people testimonials from other people. And that links up to all our bigger stuff. Oh, people, yeah, Lynn, I have a website. It's far more sophisticated than that. Yeah, but does it have the reach that we do? No.
Yeah.
Will it erase another history that you may have with a different brokerage in less than 9 months? No. Will the only thing that comes up about you be realtor.ca, which, by the way, is a horrible website. It does nothing for you as an individual. So again, where you put your money and where you put this information is critical to how well you're going to do.
Yep.
And you want to work with these people that you already can evaluate where your money's coming from.
Yep.
You can evaluate where the leads are coming from. Your database is your pot of gold. And in another segment, I've got my little chart that shows you how you can build that database up and what it does if you do 1.5 times per transaction over the course of 5 years, how that grows your business. So work on that.
Yep.
And save the money that you need to put aside and understand. And then every year add a percentage of your earnings back into your business and reinvest.
Yep. Yeah, and so, you do, just sort of summing up here because we want to wrap up, but there's so many different ways you can market. There's so many different channels. I think the key thing here is having a plan. And you got to have the different components of that plan. Who are you marketing to? Where do they get their information? What are the needs, wants? What's my call to action? What, tracking how much am I willing to spend? What do I want my cost per lead to be? All of that stuff, it comes down to the planning, calendars, et cetera. We've named so many different things. It is about establishing your brand. Don't forget about the people who already know, like, and trust you. But again, there's so many aspects, and I know, and we're going to have episodes down the line that we're going to get more in depth on, and I'm sure there's some of you going, man, I wish you would have covered this. We are going to be more in depth. This is, the first few episodes are really sort of high level, trying to get into a little bit of the meat, and then we're going to be going in a lot deeper into marketing at a later time, into branding. But the key thing now is just have a plan. The number of people that are winging it, they're not consistent. I know that's one of your pet peeves, is
just talk
consistency.
to people.
And
talk to people with a purpose. Talk to people with a purpose of finding out if they have a realtor, if you could be their realtor, and if they want to stay in touch and have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
But talk to people. This is one of the few businesses where you can conduct it on a boat, on the golf course, walking the dog, walking the kids. I mean, it doesn't get better than that, folks. And it's really simple. And I tend to think that we all overcomplicate stuff and overthink it. Just be yourself, be authentic, go ask the questions, have conversations, and get leads.
Yeah. Your marketing should elicit conversations and start conversations. If you're loving our podcast, follow us, subscribe to our podcast. We're available on just about any podcast channel out there. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you so much, and we look forward to speaking with you on our next episode of the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn Hoffmann and Eric Johnson. Thanks, guys.